When it comes to getting started with no marketing budget and you need to get leads, there's several things you can do, okay, that are cheap, but I want to go over some of them. I want to go over my favorites. First, I'm going to go over the list, and then I'm going to kind of break it down into what I would do if I started tomorrow and I had no money for marketing. So you can drive for dollars. You can drive for dollars, door knock, call, etc. Foreclosures. You can cold call, and I mean manually cold call, smile and dial. You can do cold calling on steroids, which we'll talk about today, and that's a way that you can leverage so you don't have to smile and dial so much. But that will take a little bit of a budget. You can do it for really cheap, but that you're starting to get into marketing, okay? You can post in Facebook groups, okay? You can do bandit signs. So Facebook group posting, typically the best way to do it, finds like we buy and sell local, like buy, sell, trade groups, and post in there. Like, if you know anybody moving, I'm a local real estate investor that needs to buy a house. Scalable? No, it's not super scalable, but if you do it consistently, you can do 5-6 deals a year just from that. Okay, more if you really put in the focus and the attention, but if from those deals you set aside a little money and started marketing, you'll get a lot more deals out of the time that doing the marketing stuff that we're gonna get into today. All right, so that's Facebook posting. Driving for dollars. Driving for dollars is simply driving around the area and looking for houses that might be good wholesale deals. Now, here's how most people do it. They drive around, they make lists, they maybe knock on that door, and that's kind of about all they do. They go back and maybe they skip trace that list. What you want to do when you drive for dollars is you are keeping your eyes out for houses that look like they need some work, but you've got to take into consideration the area. Like, if you're in a luxury neighborhood, you're not going to find beat up crappy houses. I mean, you might, right? But not very many of them. So if you do find a beat up crappy house in a really nice area, obviously add that one to your list. But what about the house that's in a really nice area where all the houses have been updated and they're super nice and it's, $1 million neighborhood or whatever, and you come across a house it might be in decent shape, but it's still got the original windows, the original garage door, the original front door, roof looks a little older, etc. As you can see things, you're like, whoa, this one has higher potential to be a wholesale deal than the other houses. You can put that on your list. Now, if you're in a low income area, you're looking for the crap of crap houses, because some of these, some lower, not as nice areas, every house could almost be a driving for dollars house. So you got to weed it out. You're kind of like, okay, I'm going to look for the ones that are really broken down, that are really bad, etc. Now, when you find these houses, guys, what you want to do in a perfect world, you would knock on the door, you would knock on both next door neighbors' door, and you'd knock across the street. So that's 4 door knocks for each house. Okay. But here's a secret. You're going to get to a deal quicker. What you put in is what you're going to get out. So if you do that kind of thing, you're going to get to a deal faster. And then now you can start paid marketing. You can have leads coming to you. You just sit in your office all day, qualify leads, make offers, and get deals. In the beginning, it's very important. Grind it out. Knock on doors. If you see a neighbor on the street that you're getting out, so you're driving, you've identified a house, get out of your car, you see a neighbor across the street or down the street, ask him, hey, do you know who lives here? Do you know anybody on the street that is maybe looking to sell? Find that deal, okay? And it's awesome. Now, you've got your list of houses, okay? You knock what you can. You got this big list, you get back to your office. Now you want to skip trace that list and call them. And there's different skip tracing things out there. Here's the thing with skip tracing, it's really expensive, and I'll talk more about this in CCOS. So if you do one-offs, it can be tough. What I recommend everyone does, get a Spokio account. You can get the pro version Spokio account we've had it for so many years now. I don't even know exactly what it costs. I want to say it's like $15 a month. So you can come back that list and you've got 10, 15 houses. You can literally put them into Spokio right there, one by one, and it's going to give you whatever phone numbers it can find, relatives it can find, other addresses, etc. So you can call those people. You can mail those people. Now, you want to look up also in your tax records what the mailing address is for that house. You've got the property address, right? That's the property, but the mailing address could be different, especially if it's a vacant house. So find the mailing address. Now you can, in addition to trying to skip trace it real cheap through Spokio, you can also try to mail it. You've got their address. And if you don't have a big mail budget, who cares? You can afford a stamp, an envelope, and a piece of paper. Literally write it out. Hey, I'm a real estate investor. I drove by your house. I live in the area, whatever. You're not sending mass mail. You're just sending mail to these leads you've been identified from driving for dollars. So driving for dollars is awesome. So we talked about posting Facebook groups, talked about driving for dollars. Foreclosure list, guys, is a great way to prospect. You can get the foreclosure list typically from your title company. So, and a lot of times it's going to be called the notice of default list. So this is a list of people that are behind on their mortgage that have an upcoming foreclosure sale date. Get that list from a local title company. Okay, you can skip trace that list and you can manually call it. You could also send letters to it and you can door knock it. So you're starting with no money, probably not going to send letters to it, but there's no reason you can't door knock it, at least the ones that are in your area. And there's no reason you can't punch them in Spokio real quick so you can get a phone number and call them. Foreclosures can be a good one for cold calling and driving for dollars. Now, cold calling specifically, okay? How do you cold call if you don't have a big budget? Well, again, we're getting into CCOS here in a minute because this is where it really takes off. But if you don't have much of a budget, it's a little tougher because your data is not going to be as good. You've got to have good, solid data. And so if you get a list from like the title company or some cheap source, it's typically not going to be the best data. It might be older data, might be data that everybody else is using. And this is my issue with like PropStream and a lot of those REI Automator, a lot of those softwares out there, the smart system, is these are what I call blanket list data sources. Okay, so let me break it down real quick, guys. There's 3 data sources. There's 3 types of lists. You've got wide niche lists. This is my favorite type of list. This is where you go in there and you use filters, or people call this list stacking, lead stacking. Okay, it's been around forever. It's just lead stacking, which is just a fancy term people came up with so they could sell their software. What lead stacking is and what filters are, what wide niche lists are, is just going into a list provider and saying, hey, I want a list of people that have owned their house at least 15 years. I want people that are 65 years and older. Okay, you can put other things on there too as well. Other filters like the house has to be at least 10 years old. I only want single family houses that are over 1,000 square feet. You can do whatever. But I'll tell you guys all right now, write this down. The best list that exists is they're 65 years and older. They've owned the house for 15 years or more. Start there, whatever market you're in. It's the best list. So that's wide niche data. And there's places where you can go get that list and then you can skip trace it, which is super expensive. Okay, because the best places to get raw data that don't have phone numbers is ListSource and Listability. Okay, I would not go anywhere else, guys. ListSource and Listability for wide niche data. Okay, unless you're looking for phone numbers, then I'll get into that in a minute. But ListSource and Listability will give you every record that shows up with the filters you put in there. So if you put in 65 plus, own more than 15 years, these zip codes, it's going to give you everybody, and it's going to be accurate, and it's going to be refreshed as of yesterday or today. Like, it's awesome. Okay, but it's more expensive. And you still got to go and you got to skip trace it. Then there's distress data. That's the third time. The distress data is that foreclosure list I talked about. That's the list you create by driving for dollars. That's a list you could get, find a directory in your local market of obituaries, create your own list of houses where there was a house and the owner recently died. You could find a local estate sale company in your market. All the estate sales they've got going on right now, use that as a list to cold call and market to, because estate sales oftentimes mean somebody passed away, they're selling all the stuff inside the house. Usually then they're going to sell the house at the end. So if you can go in there while they're doing the estate sale and say, hey, I'm interested in buying a house and getting to the owner or the heir that has the house, it's a great way to get deals. So you got to bang it out, got to get your first deal. Once you get that money, guys, you got to scale that into marketing. Now, if you've only got a couple bucks, you can start out with CCOS. So I'm going to get into CCOS now. If you've already got a lot of money and you're ready to go, you've got a marketing budget set aside, still start with CCOS. It's the best thing. So real quick, guys, what CCOS is cold calling on steroids. Okay. And it takes 3 of the biggest secrets for lead generation and wholesale real estate, and it combines them to come up with the most powerful lead generation model that exists, which is cold calling on steroids. So the first secret that allows cold calling on steroids to work is inbound cold calling. This allows us to take something that is the oldest, most time-tested, proven method of prospecting. Remember we talked about prospecting, we're going to them, and it turns it into an inbound marketing channel. Now, how does it do that? It does that uses app hacking. We use technology to be able to get our calls out. And then we have what I call the marketing budget hack that allows us to get these leads coming in for sometimes as low as and lower than $5 per lead. It's insane. Pros about this, the cons, I'll start with the cons about this lead source. There's really no cons that I can think of, to be honest with you. I've been running it for years. And I also do direct mail, pay-per-click, networking, MLS, all these other things. But this is by far the best lead source, whether you have a lot of money for marketing or you don't, okay? The positives, you can get tons of calls out. It's super cheap. You can have leads coming in instantly. So if you're slow, like direct mail and other things, like if you're slow and you're like, all right, fine, I'm gonna spend a bunch of money on marketing, you're still gonna have to wait for those leads to, everything to kind of process and leads to come in. This is instant, okay? So what you're gonna do, you gotta start out with a list, and we talked about lists. You've got wide niche, you've got blanket, you've got distress. Distress are going to typically be too small. Those foreclosure lists, those driving for dollars lists, et cetera. Those are going to be smaller, and you might as well just call those, smiling and dialing. And one thing I forgot to mention about actually cold calling where you're smiling and dialing is one thing that's super cheap. You can get a Mojo account, mojosells.com. If you go to mojosells.com, I think it's like $130 a month. It has what's called a triple dialer. So you can upload a list and say you've got a couple thousand contacts. You can upload that list and you can call 3 people at once, and you don't actually have to dial any of them. It'll call 3 people at once. When somebody answers, it'll stop dialing the other 2 numbers. And as soon as you hang up with that person, all 3 will start up again. Okay, it's awesome. So this will allow you to pound through lists much quicker. Because the thing is, guys, for every 3 people you call 2 are not going to answer. It's going to go. I didn't mean to flip you guys off there. 2 are going to go to the answering machine, and one of them is going to live answer. 1 live answer. That's the stats. It doesn't matter if you call 10 people or if you call 2 million people. If you call 100 people, 60 or 70 of them are going to go to voicemail, and 30 of them are going to live answer.